Okay, we're live. This is the Lovecraft eZine video talk show, and today is Sunday, September the 13th, 2015, and hopefully everything's working all right because I did a couple of different things today. We're going to be talking with Scott Thomas, author of The Sea of Ash, here in a little bit. Scott is having internet problems, unfortunately, and so worst case scenario, I will get him on the phone. But we got lots to talk about till he gets here. What are you holding up?
Joe's holding up the Sea of Ash.
Oh.
Look at it. It's a weird book.
Yeah, well, it was upside down. That's really weird.
Yeah. And it like opens and bookmarks fall out.
Hey, I got a whole Scott Thomas library to share.
Oh, well, that's awesome.
Oh, you mean you're giving it away? Just send it right to my house.
No, by share I meant to make you jealous.
Yep. It is a good book. Scott Thomas.
We can even do the other weird Thomas guy.
This is a better book. This is the best.
That's a very good book, too.
Okay, so you're sending me that, Matt. There you go. We've solved that problem.
I have sent it to you psychically.
Here's what we're going to do.
That's bullshit.
Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give away 2 copies of this today, The Sea of Ash by Scott Thomas. I'm also going to give away that Cthulhu print that I referenced on the show, on the website a little bit ago. A really nice Cthulhu print by Richard Luong. So I've got 3 prizes to give away to live viewers. How do you win? Just keep watching. We'll tell you how to win. And Matt, you're giving away Westermead?
No, that's mine. No one gets that.
You're giving me Westermead? Is that what you said?
No.
Oh.
But some lucky viewer is going to get Cthulhu Simreg. You know, Simreg's harder to pronounce than Cthulhu.
It is, yeah.
Okay. That's because you're not Welsh. If you were Welsh, it wouldn't be all that hard.
It's Welsh mythos stories.
And that's edited, if I remember right, by Mark Howard Jones.
Yes. So, and the forward is by your friend and mine, S.T. Joshi.
Everyone's friend. Yeah.
Right.
All right.
So let's talk to the Scott Thomas's brother while he's here.
Well, I was about to say that Jeff Thomas is on the show today too, we have Salome with us today, so I'm very happy about
Salome.
that. Yep. And I have a lot to talk about. We got a lot of time. Believe me, we can kill time until Scott gets his. He just texted me and said he's reinstalling his wireless router. That's got to be frustrating. So.
Rick Lay's here, and he's even awake.
All right. So Laird, someone asked me.
Oh, wait a minute. We didn't introduce Pete Rollick. Why is he on the El Crapola list?
Who is Pete Rollick? Oh, Pete Rollick.
Yeah, right.
Yes, Mr. Reanimator.
Mr. Reanimator.
Oh, yeah, right.
I'm sorry. I just assumed everyone knew who he was.
And I'm the Beaver.
The Beaver in yellow.
Well, who's Wally?
Jerry Mathers. That's right.
As long as you're not a zombiever.
No, I don't like zombies.
Well, someone asked this question on my message board, on the eZine message board, and actually Laird Barron was nice enough to just answer it too. So we'll start with this. Christian Weisner, hope I'm saying your last name right, Christian, says, since you guys have been so helpful, I have a question about submitting stories for publication. Can anyone give me an idea of how much editing, this is a beginning writer here, I'm assuming, so how much editing a submission needs before it is sent? I find that the cost to have a short manuscript edited often exceeds the amount I'm being paid for it. While I'm certainly not writing for the pay, I would like to not lose money on it. Is this what the receiving editor does on their end when they've accepted the story, or are you expected to send a professionally edited submission and the editor will tell you what, if anything, needs to be changed? Thanks for any feedback. And I know a lot of us that have been doing this for a while, maybe obvious answers, but not to someone who hasn't been doing it for a while. Laird's replied a few minutes ago, and then you guys hit it. He says, Christian, most authors I know use beta readers to catch obvious errors. The only time I'd consider hiring an editor and/or a copy editor would be if I planned to self-publish. So that's Laird's answer. What do you guys say?
That was where I was going to start. Is if you have a friend who's a good reader, maybe who's edited, a beta reader is a great start for somebody just starting out.
So what would someone like Pete Rawlik do if you don't have a friend? What would you do?
Well, I just drowned myself if I was Pete Rawlik, but you know, we missed the opportunity for that. So we'll go back to this guy Christian, who's more important at the moment.
All right.
Laird's 110% right. A beta reader, if you can get one, is absolutely the place to start. After that, you're a new writer. So if you were going to write a Lovecraftian story of one flavor of another, and let's say submit it someplace to like Lovecraft eZine, it's going to go in the slush pile. We assume, the editor would assume you read the guidelines, so the story is presented in whatever, you know, format and whatnot that they want to receive manuscripts in, and it'll get read from there. How much editing? You know, start submitting. See what editors see before you start worrying about that. Put your best work into your piece. Try to get somebody to beta read it, to vet it, to somebody who's honest. Because somebody who's just patting you on the back isn't doing you any good. Somebody who, when they come across a sentence that's, let's say, clunky, you know, is a good enough friend or a good enough reader or both to say, hey, that's a clunky sentence, or, you know, you're repeating yourself here, or, you know, try this, or have you thought about that?
I can give you some advice also. When I just recently edited a book, I got like 3 or 4 stories from one person, and he sent me an accompanying note saying, I know these are a little rough, just make whatever changes you see fit until they're worth publishing.
No.
And that is generally not a recommended approach.
Whoa. Screw the generally. That's no, with an exclamation mark. Not my job as editor to rewrite your story. It's your job as the author to write it. If I have suggestions, I'll make them. If I find a typo, I'll tell you. If I think a sentence sucks, I'll tell you. But it is not my job to do your job. Okay, I'll shut up for a minute.
Can I say something?
Please do.
Yep.
I think it depends a lot on where you're submitting. Different editors have different approaches. Anyone big or well-known, like Joe Pulver, is not going to do a lot of work on your story for you, and he probably will say, "What? Why do you ask me to do this?"
Joe Pulver may do a buku shitload of work on your story.
Yes, but not when they first.
Because he loved the story, but he thought it needed work. But Joe Pulver won't rewrite it.
No, and he also, I mean, and I won't either, but there might be some places that, who knows, wouldn't mind that much if you said do whatever you want to it. Someone that you all know said
I did. I crumpled it and put it in the remainder.
Then please, new writer, if somebody said, if you send a story to somebody and say, do whatever you want to it, man, you're just opening up a world of hurt.
That's true. I'm not trying to refute what you're saying, but I just want to say...
I couldn't agree more, Salome. All editors are different. Hell, editors are different on Monday than they are on Thursday, depending. You know, the same editor. So you're right about that.
Not me. I'm a rock. Damn it.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I just had this talk with one of our editors today where I was asking if he wanted to help me with some submissions, And he said, okay, but you have to tell me what's acceptable. As I remember, you will take things that I wouldn't take. And I was like, well, I want you to know why I will take things you don't take. And I showed him 2 stories, one when it came in, one when we published it. We did a lot of work with the author on it. We do tons of work on it. So if it has a good idea at its center, we want to help writers get their stuff published. But if
Yes,
it's not a
we
good
do.
idea,
New voices are important. That's what keeps this genre alive, fresh, and expanding. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
it's okay. Just if there's no redeeming features, the writing's bad, and we're like, nah, this just doesn't work for me, then we probably won't take it, and we won't do that much work on it. We can't save every story, but some stories we're like, oh yeah, that's a really good idea, but it just, it has this or that problem. Some of it is quite substantial problems, but whatever is good about it outweighs that in our minds, and so we'll put a ton of work into it, as you say.
Yeah, that's true, and it's important to point out that there's a difference between editing and line editing. I think no matter who you're submitting to, look, there shouldn't be everyone. Look, everyone makes mistakes, things slip through. I'm not talking about that, but there shouldn't be constant grammatical errors and misspellings and stuff like that. I mean, that should be just a given. So,
I'm sorry.
yeah, you should. I'm not talking about you. I could be, but no.
Yeah.
The answer to the question is invent your own language like Pulver did, and everybody will be afraid to edit you, so they'll just, well, they won't publish it, so they won't have to worry about it.
Actually, you don't know how true that is. I got line editors working for me, and I say if I accidentally send you a Pulver story, ignore
they run
it.
like hell.
Yeah. Or you could write in unlanguage.
Hmm?
In what kind of language?
Unlanguage.
Oh,
Unlanguage, yeah. Cisco.
yeah,
Yeah.
you could.
The reason you don't want the editor to make the changes, you want to make the changes based on the suggestions, is you'll learn nothing as a writer if he's fixing your work.
That's true. And I want to read you. I read me all the day long while I'm writing. I don't want to read me. I want to read you. Show me who you are. Show me what you got to bring to the game.
Now, I will say this. Sometimes the editor is right. A lot of times the editor is right. Sometimes, maybe 1 in 100, the editor is wrong.
That's true.
Editors are human beings. We sure make mistakes. We pass on things that we shouldn't have passed on. We cannot all be Ellen Datlow and be right 150% of the time. I make mistakes. I'm not perfect.
No, you're not.
This is a true story. I spent a year with an editor working on a very large manuscript, and I got fed up one day, and I pulled up all the track changes, and I was now changing text that he had changed.
Shut up, Joe.
And I was like, this is it. We're done. I'm not editing stuff that you've already edited and then and have changed again. That was the end of the process.
Yeah, there's definitely a balance.
Another thing that's
ahead,
like
Joe.
part 2 of what Salome said is she's right. Editors are very different. So when you're submitting to an editor, if it's good if you know who they are. And I don't mean, Ellen Datlow as opposed to Paula Goran, as opposed to S.T. Joshi. I mean, have you read any of Ellen's books? Do you know what she likes? Have you read any of her interviews? Do you know what she dislikes? It's just another aspect of knowing your trade is you're submitting to editors. who is that person behind the curtain? The more you can find out about them, the more you're aware of who they like and what they like and whatnot. Um, that's just more in your toolbox as you're trying to improve on your part of the craft.
Yeah. Well, before we go on to the next topic, Jeff, any thoughts on this?
Well, I was going to say that the best editor is always going to be yourself. You know, you can't, as other people brought up, you can't leave it to other people to correct your material. You should be polishing it and polishing it and repolishing it, rereading it and rereading it, and editing yourself, making it as clean and articulate, grammatically correct as possible. And like Joe said, you could get a beta reader. You know, I personally don't use one, but I have had friends like Ian Rogers is a fine author who read a forthcoming collection of mine. He's going to do the introduction for it. And as he was reading it, he caught some typos that had slipped by me. And I'm pretty good with catching that stuff. But no matter who you are or how good you are, you're going to miss stuff. So it's good to have a beta reader. But what I would stress is be your own editor. Don't send out a manuscript unless you've been over that with a fine-tooth comb.
Good point.
And if you are, let me just add to that, that one of the best things you can do as a writer is put aside what you've been, at least for me, let me just speak for me, I know for a lot of writers, put aside what you've been working on when you're done with it, and put it aside for a week or two, and when you come back to it, you'll have fresher eyes. So.
That really works. When I first started sending to small press magazines, I would literally write a story in one day, print it out, put it in an envelope, and send it. I wouldn't even reread it. That's crazy. I can't believe any of those ever got published. But now, I do like what you say, Mike. When I finish it, I've already been editing it. When I write it, I never resume writing without going back and reading what I've written before. I read when it's finished. I read it, reread it, and then I put it aside and come back to it, like you said, later. And sometimes you have a fresh perspective. That's very important.
And if you don't have a beta reader who you think will do a good job, there are some places online like zoetrope.com, which is some famous director.
Coppola,
right, runs the site. So they have this story submission thing. You can put your stories in, and you have to critique like 5 stories for one story that you put in. So if you have any time, and it also helps you, I think, to critique the other people's stories, because you're much more likely to see something as a mistake in someone else's writing. Like if they do the same thing you do, and then you read theirs and you're like, oh, that doesn't look good. Oh my God, I do this all the time. It helps you realize those kind of errors that you make. You can get some free critique that way.
Yeah. I've heard of that site, but I didn't know that that's how it works. Sounds like a good site.
That's interesting.
Okay, so moving on, let's talk about, because sometimes we don't get a chance to do this. Anybody want to shout out about stuff they're working on or have coming up? Jeff, you just mentioned you got a collection coming out?
Yeah, I've got a collection coming from Dark Renaissance Books, and it's called. I gotta stop to think of the name of it. I have so many things going on. It's called Haunted Worlds.
Okay.
That's supposed to come out next year.
Is it all reprints or all new?
Excuse me?
Is it new or is it reprint?
It's all new. Everything in there is unpublished.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Polar?
I got so much stuff to take forever. I'm working on, I don't know, 5, 7 anthologies.
What's coming out the soonest? What's coming up next?
Casilda's Song, waiting for a release date.
Right.
All Women wrote tributes to Robert W. Chambers, King in Yellow. I think it's a pretty darn good book. It's got a great table of contents. Can't wait to start screaming that you can get it.
Great.
That's where I'm at with Legacy of the Reanimators.
Yep.
We had copies at Necro. We just have to see when it's going to hit the streets.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll hear something this week.
Yeah, because I think we both want copies available at the film festival.
A, absolutely, and B, I want readers to read this. The contributors did some, I think, just marvelous, amazing work, and I want it in the hand of readers.
Well, you blew through 80 copies pretty quick at Necro.
Yeah, in an eye blink, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Legacy of the Reanimators did the same thing, poof, gone. There's people out there that want. They got their pennies ready.
Yeah.
You want to see reviews.
Yeah.
Well, that too. But there's no place, it's hard to post a review and have it mean anything if you can't buy the book.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, Casilda Songs got a great review on Goodreads. And I got 5 messages within a few hours, like when.
Well, hopefully soon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Well, I've got a story in Legacy of the Reanimator, Cruel Heaven. And in December, I'll have a story in Tales of the Shadowman number 12 called The Tomb of the Veiled Prophet, which is a Phantom of the Opera story set in Persia.
Great.
On the approximate 6 to 12-month horizon, Sam Gafford and I are going to be putting together another book. We'll be opening it up for submissions about Miskatonic University tales from Ulthar Press.
Well, here, just let me send you my hard drive.
Okay, anybody else before I go on to the next topic? This is interesting.
Go ahead, Salome.
Yes. Everyone knows about Cthulhu's Dreaming. We also have another Cosmic Horror kind of thing. It's a bit secret still, but that will be...
You can tell us.
Yeah, no one's watching. Don't worry about
There's
it.
only
No one's
200.
watching, but they will be watching, right?
No, they are watching
I will
now.
say
Yeah,
to you
I'm
that it's a storybook plus something else. That's the mysterious hint that I will give.
Wow.
And
You're
we have
just
another
teasing us with
anthology
this
that we're
information.
working on. It's not Cosmic Horror, though. It's a sci-fi and fantasy anthology.
Sci-fi
Haunted
what?
Futures. Sci-fi and fantasy called
Okay.
Haunted Futures. There were a number of notable authors in it.
Okay.
So no Pete Rawlick then.
So Pete Rawlick and Mike Davis, along with Brian Salmons and some other people you probably know, are in Cthulhu's Dreaming.
Yeah, that's going to be out this year?
Hopefully.
Okay. Okay, so this is interesting. Oh, by the way, I feel real bad for Scott. Murphy's Law, his internet's acting up, his computer's acting up. Worst case scenario, we're going to keep chatting for a while. If he can't get online, I've got his phone number, and I'll just put him on speakerphone, and I think we can probably make that work to get an interview going here. And I know the audience has questions they've already sent.
Probably a tree just fell on his phone line, too, poor guy.
I'm sorry?
Probably a tree just fell on his phone line, too.
Yeah, that'll happen. And then then Jeff will have to fill in if that happens. And pretend to be Scott. So, all right, so this is interesting. Interview with Laird Barron. This is Dark Regions Press is doing this. I'll be posting about this on the Lovecraft eZine page on Tuesday because that's when it starts. Interview Laird Barron with Lovecraft eZine, limited time raffle, September 15th through September 18th. Anyone who contributes to the I Am the Abyss Kickstarter campaign will receive the rare Laird Barron short story, The Beautification of Custard Poe, in PDF format. 10 people who contribute to the campaign through the giveaway /raffle software on this page can also enter for a chance to win a signed and personalized hardcover of The Croning or the Beautiful Thing That Awaits Us All from Laird, and ask an interview question. So this coming Friday, I don't know the time yet, I'll work it out with Laird, but this coming Friday, Laird and Chris Morey with Dark Regions Press and I, as I understand how this is going to work, we're going to do a short video chat asking Laird these 10 questions from the winners of this raffle. So I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
so,
cool.
Yeah. So everything you always wanted to ask Laird Barron, but haven't been able to ask till now. If you're one of the winners on this thing, I don't know if it's random or what. I don't know what it is, but I assume Dark Regions Press. It looks like it's random. I don't know. Contribute to the Kickstarter. I Am the Abyss, and I guess you can enter in for that. What else we got? Oh, I discussed this with Joe before the show. I'm going to do a Lovecraft eZine post on basically ask the question, what is weird fiction? What does it mean to you? Or what does the phrase weird fiction mean to you? And I've been hearing different answers from different writers that I respect lately. So I think it would be interesting, I never want the eZine website to be about what Mike Davis thinks about anything per se, but try and represent the community as much as possible. So I'm going to send this question out to a few authors that have the time to answer it, guys like you and other people, and see what they come up with. So,
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, sounds interesting.
Yeah, well, I like the Thomas Ligotti answer. I think he said something to the effect of, things are not as they seem. I think Olivia Llewellyn added to that one time, and you're not as you seem either. But we'll see what everybody comes up with. So on the Sea of Ash, Jeff, for those that don't know, there's an interesting backstory to this. Can you tell that? Talk about that for a second?
Sure. The project came about with Sean Wallace when he was heading Prime Books. In fact, I have it here. He had this piece of artwork that by Travis Anthony Sumas, and I think I can't remember the name of the artwork, but he liked that image so much that he asked my brother and I if we could each write a novella or a short novel based on that same image, and then he would collect these two into one volume. And so I was talking with Scott about it, and Scott came up with the title, The Sea of Flesh and Ash. And one of us would write The Sea of Flesh, and the other would write The Sea of Ash. So I said, I want The Sea of Flesh. And he said, good, because I wanted The Sea of Ash. So then we went our own ways, and we wrote our stories about this image, and we never conferred with each other about what the other was writing. We just brought the finished stories and read them. And we saw a few similarities. They're both set in New England, but that's not surprising because we're both from New England. And but they also both involved kind of other dimensions, other alternate realms a little bit. But other than that, they're very much reflective of our own personalities. And so ultimately, the book was scheduled for 2004, and it kind of languished for years. Finally, Prime released it back to us, and it was brought out by Terradan, a new publisher called Terradan, but it didn't get very wide exposure. And then Mike Davis ended up with a copy of it at Necronomicon 2013, and fell in love with The Sea of Ash. And I had already made plans to reprint The Sea of Flesh in a collection of mine, which I just happened to have here too. Mine's Worship the Night. And so I republished The Sea of Flesh and Worship the Night, released by Dark Renaissance Books. And so I encouraged Scott to find a publisher for his story because I thought it's a wonderful story and it deserved a wider audience. And so luckily Mike brought The Sea of Ash out on its own, and it's got a lot of acclaim, which it deserves.
Yeah, I read it on the plane ride home. I missed a little bit of what you said because I called Scott. He's still trying his internet, and he's going to try a couple more things. And yeah, I fell in love with it.
Yeah, and there's all. Can I
please do.
in here for a minute? I mean, yeah, wonderful book, and it's just filled with. Well, let me read one brief paragraph. There is a gray sensibility in this city. Even in sunlight, the bleakness permeates like the ghost of silent industry, weltering in the shadows of abandoned mills. Damn, that's good.
Yeah.
You know, it's a truly wonderful story. It's engaging and gripping, but the entirety of this text is just filled with stunning turns of phrase, like that are exemplified in that particular brief paragraph.
Yeah, and it's funny because on the plane ride home, Joe, I borrowed a pen from the lady sitting next to me, and I kept underlining phrases that I thought were so great.
I mean, that could be Legati, for crying out loud.
Scott's very poetic, and he was just invited to an anthology. Yeah, the editor asked me if I could get in touch with Scott and let him know that he wanted him in this anthology. And the editor, this editor, expressed it very well. He said Scott's work is elegant, and it's elegant without being twee. You know, it's.
Oh yeah, here's a sentence, and I really dislike Scott for you know, there's all these great sentences up in the word cloud, and I can't believe that Scott was up there before me and grabbed this sentence. September whispers around my house, a blend of crickets and breeze. Dear Scott Thomas, you dirty, rotten SOB, you stole that sentence before I could get it? I'm going to kill you, boy. I wanted that sentence.
It's like reaching for the garter at a wedding. He caught that one.
Yeah.
Now, I just wanted to say something here because this may have been a lot of the readers' or viewers' chance to become familiar with Scott's work, but it is really just part of an accumulating body of work that all merits serious attention, that is all frequently, I don't know, melancholic isn't the right word, but
that's accurate.
Autumnal is the word that I keep coming up with.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've just been a fan of his for years. I started with this book here, which is Over the Darkening Fields.
That is one I started with, too. That is a wonderful collection. From
Dark Regions Press. And then from there, I went to what I think is, you talk about the Sea of Ash. That's not his masterpiece. So far, this is his Westermead.
Mm-hmm.
It is really beautiful. The whole book is gorgeous. This is the limited edition from Raw Dog Screaming Press. There was a softcover edition. I think used copies are relatively inexpensive. The cover for the cover art for the soft cover edition of Westermead perfectly sums up the tone of the book. It's filled with little snippets that make it like a travel log in the world of Westermead. He provided his own interior art at different places. The stories are not really connected per se, but they're occurring more or less in the same geography, which you might think of as somewhere like Celtic, like Ireland or Scotland or somewhere like that.
Mm-hmm.
In the days when people traveled by ship and by horseback, maybe there were highwaymen, who had single-shot rifles or blunderbusses. It's just a really The only thing that makes me sad about it is he's not going back there. You know, it's like it was a. He said something like it was a. When he wrote it, he was very much in a mood and in the place of writing it, and now he's off doing other things, which is fine because then you get wonderful books like this book, Felongray, also from Raw Dog Screaming Press. It is ghosts, kind of a ghost story maybe. He had these companion books from Dark Regions Press. This was Ern and Willow. Beautiful stories, and then Quill and Candle. They're not connected, but they're like companion pieces. You could spend multiple evenings through September and October just with these at your nightstand, reading one or two before bedtime. Or you could even go and join him in the Garden of Ghosts, another wonderful collection. All of these are so worth your time. So don't just think about The Sea of Flesh and Midnight in New England. It's like,
oh yeah,
wonderful book. So understated, so beautifully written. No, it doesn't seem to make anybody's radar in terms of like the best of this or the best of that or the end of year summary. But gosh, even like the year's best horror stories, I'd rather spend an evening with a nice Scott Thomas book, just because especially through the fall. I just gotta say. So don't think that he just has the Sea of Ash. There's a lot more to Scott Thomas than you would think.
He hasn't written anything that I haven't loved, and it's amazing to me that he hasn't gotten more attention. I think, of course, much of that has to do with the nature of the small press, you know.
And because his work is understated, I think.
Yeah.
There are people who want a little bit more pyrotechnics in their horror, but he has he had a story in one of the year's best, the last volume of Daw Books, the year's best horror stories, that was edited by Carl Edward Wagner. He did have a story reprinted in that, and for the year's best fantasy and horror, edited by Ellen Datlow, she picked two of his stories in volume 15, and let me tell you, it's hard to get one story in a Ellen Datlow year's best.
Yeah.
So two stories that year. That was extremely impressive. I think he had like 9 or 10 honorable mentions that year too. But despite that, he deserves much more attention than he's got, because, like Matthew said, he's got a real significant body of work, and all of it is uniformly excellent. And like Matthew was saying, Westermead and Felongray, his novel Felongray, both take place in kind of an alternate world, an alternate kind of UK. And if you wanted a good kind of entry point to Scott's work, again, like Mike said and Matthew said, Over the Darkening Fields is actually a good one, because it's got 3 sections, and one is devoted to the kind of work that he does best. I think it's period work. It's in the kind of the Victorian era of the United States and UK. Then there's another section of work that is not as typical of him, but it's like contemporary horror. And then the last section of that book is kind of in one of those alternate worlds, kind of like Felongray or Westermead. So that one book kind of gives you 3 different unique perspectives on the kind of work that he can do.
Yeah. Well, he's starting to get a little bit more attention now, and I'm glad of it. I think what is happening is that a lot of people have become aware of this over the last 6 or 8 months, and after reading this, they're like, I've got to find more Scott Thomas to read.
I think that's really made a big impact, Mike. That this book coming out has put him on people's radar in a bigger way than ever before.
Well, I'll tell you, when I approached him about reading at Necronomicon, he's such a humble guy. He's no idea how talented he is, and he was just shocked that they would want him to read at Necronomicon. You know, read a passage from one of his books. But yeah, he's starting to hit people's radar, and I'm glad of it because
I had lunch with him yesterday, and
Yeah.
he said, after Necronomicon, all these people are befriending me on Facebook. He was kind of like surprised that people would want to be friends with him. It's like, well, you know, you made an impression. Your people are recognizing you now. You know, it's kind of like you said. He's humble. It kind of takes him by surprise a little bit.
and he read so well. He did a great job reading. I recorded that. I'll post that again. But yeah, there's so many passages in this book. He keeps popping in and out. I think he's having trouble, so I'm gonna try and get him on the phone. The days go dark so early now. The tree shadows reach to each other and merge, and the moon comes up as if released from some forgotten stone temple, as if born of an ash-colored sea. There's passages like that throughout the entire book.
Yeah, everywhere. I just picked a couple. You can almost just drop your finger anywhere in the book and come up with a passage that's just like that.
Yeah, you guys do me a favor and keep talking for a minute, and I'm going to mute, and I'm going to get Scott on the phone here, and I'll come right back with you.
Yeah.
Well, I guess another thing, we have to make the point that he is a poet. If you are friends with him on Facebook, he frequently publishes poems that he wrote, either recently or before, and that flavors his choice of language.
Oh, he's absolutely informed by poetry. It's an important, essential tool in his toolbox. It's everywhere in his work, and his work is richer for it.
Jeff, since you're his brother, and I'm assuming you grew up with him, where does this love of literature and writing come from?
It's funny you should ask me, Pete, because I was just going to say Scott's writing is obviously reflected by the reading he's done. Some of his favorite writers are like M.R. James, you know, and Dickens, and he's very fond of the poetry of Robert M. Service. Is it Robert M. Service or Robert S. Service? I think it's Robert M. Service.
You're kidding.
And no, he introduced me to that poet. And Henry James' The Turn of the Screw is one of his favorite stories. So he has, you know, if you read literature, it's going to, you know, it's going to be reflected in your output. There's Scott.
There he is.
Hey.
Hey.
I'm so sorry.
That is so weird. We were just talking about you.
Yeah.
You know, I saw Matthew and holding up the books, and I was like transfixed by all the words, and I couldn't see me. I was just my little face icon there. But Matthew, thank you. That was lovely what you were saying about all the different books and stories in general.
Yeah, we tried to stop him, but he just kept going on and on about how great you are.
That was very humbling.
Well, your brother, I don't know if you caught any of it or not, your brother covered the story of how the Sea of Ash came to be. By the way, just as an aside, anyone who wants to read The Sea of Flesh, it's in Jeff's, one of his newer collections called, I'm sorry, I forgot.
Worship the Night.
Worship the Night, yeah. Let me put you on screen there. Yeah, hold that up again real quick. Okay.
Actually, Mike, I think I'm Sorry I Forgot is the title of my next collection.
Oh, is it?
That'd be a good one.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have written that.
Yeah.
All right, so Scott, we've covered how it came to be, and I've got some. You guys jump in with questions if you want. I can start this off by covering a couple of questions from the audience. Let me scroll down here. First question is from Adam Selby Martin. Want to ask Mr. Thomas a question about the Sea of Ash. When you were writing it, what themes were you hoping to put across to the reader? And were there any authors in particular that inspired you?
Authors, I'll do the second part of the question first. You know, I don't recall trying to really be like Lovecraft, particularly intentionally. I wanted it to have a classic feel in ways, and you know, Lovecraft is of course one of the classics. So I was probably mindful to some degree of that, but I wasn't intentionally trying to evoke any other authors. I was just trying to do what it represents. And what was the first part of the question? I'm sorry.
Did you have any particular themes in mind?
So I wanted to have it sort of like a travelogue of a mysterious New England. With at the time, I was very much into the history of where I was living, and I guess my fascination at that time with the past certainly had a powerful effect on what I wrote. But in terms of an actual theme, I think I wanted to just create a very intriguing and strange and mysterious story.
Yeah. Okay, so Kat wants to know, Scott, I keep seeing your poetry here and there. Is a collection available? If not, when will one be available?
There's lots of some folks talking about looking into doing a collection. I'm waiting to hear if how that's coming along. I would love it.
Okay. Let's see what else I got. Okay, so Kim, this is a good question. Do you base your story elements, such as Fractured Harry, on real-world legends or myths?
Not really. It's very, very rare that I'll draw from actual folklore, although I love New England folklore, and the tone or the qualities of it will inspire me, and I might write things that are similar in ways, but I don't generally incorporate actual folklore.
Yeah. Yeah, Fractured Harry, he's so unique. I mean, I don't want to give too much of the book away to people who haven't read it, but, you know, he's a ghost that takes on the appearance of, I guess, what you'd say, whatever's nearby.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what he comes across.
Yeah, whatever he's got at hand to use. He's very resourceful.
Yeah. Yeah, what was one of his appearances, he had a mop head. Am I remembering that right?
Mop is one side. And one of his incarnations, he had the body of a guitar, and it was a jar of fireflies for the head, and was wearing a dress. So it was sort of like Fractured Arietta or something.
Right. Yeah, I mean, how did you, do you, you know, sometimes things just come to us as writers, but do you remember anything about how he came to be?
You know, I wish I could remember the moment or why that came to my imagination. Just, I don't know if I have a curious imagination that comes up with things. I don't know where they come from.
So here's the question you knew you were going to get, because I asked you if you would do a sequel to the Sea of Ash,
Mhm.
and you said you would. Now, of course, there's no rush or anything. Um, but the question is from Matthew Bartlett, as a matter of fact. Can you give us any teasers regarding the highly anticipated sequel to the Sea of Ash? Or have you gotten that far yet? My guess is the answer is no, but I've got to ask the question anyway.
Sure, it's inevitable. I wish I could get a titillating answer, but all I have right now is it's sort of like the aspects and ingredients are at work and formulating, moving around, but I don't have enough of a sense of particulars to really give a satisfying uh, indication of what's to come.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. When I read this through for the second time, something came to me and I emailed you and asked you. The protagonist is not named in the novel. And I was wondering, what are your reasons for that? Or I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I don't mean to imply that, but I just think it's pretty unique. And
I thought it would be kind of neat if we never heard the name of the person. In a sense, that perhaps allows for the everyman concept to be a little more accessible to the person who's reading it. Although the reader does have a personality, and you can tell a lot about him from. He's quite expressive as this story goes. But I thought it would be kind of cool. It's like, what if we never know his name? And then that might make us step a little easier into the everyman shoes.
Rodney Turner says no rush on the Sea of Ash. We need it by Tuesday. And Kim Smeltzer on the message board, Jeff says, I'm using a site. I did an Amazon search for Worship the Night by Jeff Thomas. They came up with a nice little apology saying, we couldn't find Worship the Night by Jeff Thomas. Did you mean Worship Jeff Thomas?
Everybody.
Yeah.
Worship Jeff Thomas. That'll be a Jeff Thomas tribute anthology.
There you go.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Very popular.
I have a lot of good ideas.
Now, I have a couple questions, if you don't mind.
No, please go ahead.
Okay, first of all, I'm always very interested in the craft of writing. Now, people need to know that you work full-time. So it's not like you're a full-time writer. You have to make a living. So you only have a few hours, if hours is correct, of writing a day. Who are your literary influences, and could you tell us about your writing habits? When do you write? Is it at odd hours? Do you get up in the middle of the night?
Yes. Yes and no, Matthew. Presently, my situation, my hours, I'm not writing much at all. Situationally. Most of my years of productive writing, I had a writing room and hours that would allow me to stay up deep into the night, me and my books and my music and my study, with my externalized aesthetic around me. So it was a perfect writing environment. And so presently, my hours and such aren't really conducive. I am definitely a nocturnal writer, and in terms of process, I'll often have headphones and music on, although I'll be playing something, and for a while I'm not even really hearing it. But my influences, it goes back to me and Jeffrey putting our heads together, sharing our creativity, and then doing our own things, and yet inspiring each other. So Jeffrey's probably my biggest influence over my lifetime. Other folks like Dylan Thomas, his use of language was just like stunning to me. And in a similar way, a singer named Robin Williamson, well, he has written some, but he's largely a bard. He's in the incredible string band who formed at Woodstock, actually. He's a Celtic musician. He's just a wordsmith. It's just mind-boggling. And his use of language, again, has really influenced me a lot. In terms of fiction, R. James is my favorite supernatural or horror writer. Lovecraft, of course, is and H. Russell Wakefield, Henry James, Turn of the Screw is a big influence. And probably forgetting people, but if I think about best of, that would be probably best influences. Different people like Truman Capote. Anyone who's reading stirs the writer in me, inspires me. If not inspired in me or influenced me stylistically, has spoken to the author in me.
So, a quick follow-on question. This is always fascinating to me, too. What music do you listen to, or do you have on that you're not listening to when you write?
That varies. Quite often, it's a composer, Arcangelo Corelli, who he died around 1713, in the late 1600s. He was a virtuoso, one of the first people to really popular violin music. But I'll play diverse things. I wrote an erotic Japanese story, which I bought traditional Japanese play while I was writing it. I'll listen to sometimes I'll put on a spooky wind sounds in the background, or during Westermead. Westermead had a lot to do with who I was specifically at that time. I was discovering amazing music, British music, Robin Williams. I could go on and on. Still, I span, and I played tons of that stuff, which infused into me as I was writing. And I wrote Western for a long time, and it a lot of the British traditional playing traditional music. I guess a lot of it's now become sort of I won't get into it. At any rate, I listen to REM. I mean, just a range of people. And Robin Williamson, who I talked about before, I played a lot of him. Right? And then,
are you aware of any Robin?
Yeah, Joe?
Sorry.
Are you aware of any of Robin Williamson's newer work on ECM Records?
Like
the Seeded Zero. His last few recordings have been on ECM, and I would think you would find them just utter delights.
I do have the Seeded Zero, and it's one of the map with no something.
Okay.
But I do have, I have at least a couple of those, and it is wonderful stuff, and neat to see him redoing the material in different ways. It's pretty heavy.
Yeah, Williamson's fantastic. I've always enjoyed him.
Oh, I'm glad you like him, and Joe being the amazing word.
Oh, I can sit around and sing old incredible string bands all night if you want.
Yeah.
If I was a witch's hat sitting on her head like a paraffin stove, I'd fly away and get back. We could do that for hours.
There you go, Joe.
All right. Anybody else got questions? I'm going to see if there's any more on the message board, but in the meantime. Oh, Susan Carr says, I agree with Jeff on Over the Darkening Fields. It's some of Scott's best works and one that I reread again and have shared with many friends. So you got a lot of fans, Scott.
Yep. And we often ask, who do you like now? Who are you reading now? Who's current that you think is cool?
You know, as with my not writing much in recent years, I've read shamelessly little. I antagonize myself over not having kept up on reading my own brother's stuff. And so I've read so little of, so many of my friends are authors, and I'm ashamed that I've read so little of their stuff. I'm trying to amend that by reading some here and there. So people I've read recently, I've read some by Peter, I've read Joe, I've read some recently, and read who else? Folks, but in local, I love stuff. But it is a shame that I can't really say much about. It's not like I'm not reading very much at all last few years.
You're kind of in a transitional place right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it tougher, yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Pete had to go, and I think Salome got kicked out. I'm sure she'll be back.
Something, yeah.
Yeah. Do you, I mean, I know you're still thinking this through, and although we'd like to get it in a hurry, it'll be a bit, but do you think maybe, have you thought about whether you're going to use that same protagonist or with the sequel to the Sea of Ash, or more going with the same theme slash storyline in a sense?
First of all, I'm very excited about it. I do have some other projects that are sort of like obstacles that I want to get out of my way, because what I really want to be doing is the sequel, and if that's what's going on in my mind. Not that I want to I have blocking me at work and just, but it does kind of irk me that I do have some projects I need to finish before I can start the sequel, so I want to say that. I'm excited to be working on it. But to me, it has to be the same protagonist from the other one.
Sorry, you say it has to be, or it doesn't have to be?
It's got to be. Yeah. It has to be.
Good.
I want it to be a true sequel.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have questions for Scott on the Sea of Ash or anything else that he's written? You've got a lot out there. You can fill a whole shelf almost.
No, it's about a third of a shelf at this point.
Third of a shelf? Depends on the shelf, I guess.
Wow, I'm honored. I love what you said about Westermead.
Well, it's all true. Thanks for writing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's all got, Matt used the word autumnal. It's all got an autumnal feel to it, to my mind, too. A lot of the writing does. So.
Yeah.
I love hearing you say that my stories, you associate them with the season that I resonate to so strongly. I guess I'm doing something right then.
Yeah, because I know how much you like Halloween. So.
Indeed.
All right, so, well, I don't know. I don't want to put any dates out there whatsoever, but when you write and I publish the sequel to the Sea of Ash, What do you think? I'm not going to hold you to it, but what do you think? Year and a half from now, 2 years from now,
No sooner than 2 years, certainly.
sooner? Good. Okay. Well, I'm a slow writer. I don't know how fast everybody else writes, but I write slow. So.
I can spend hours on like a couple sentences or something.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. All right, Jeff, anything you want to add, or anybody else?
I would just, again, encourage everybody, just don't limit yourself to the Sea of Ash. There's a lot of other great stuff out there by Scott.
Mm. And Scott has something upcoming in Autumn Cthulhu, is that correct?
I do.
Yeah, that's right, and I'm actually glad you brought that up because
And, well, I was going to say, as does Jeff. And what happened to Pete? Pete disappeared.
Pete said something about going
Oh,
to his
that's right, Pete had
mother-in-law's
to go.
birthday party.
I'm sorry, I forgot all about it.
Yeah.
Your mother had too, Joe.
I'm sorry?
You're in Autumn Cthulhu too.
Yeah, I'm in there as well. Yeah,
Well, the thing about Scott's story in Autumn Cthulhu, for those out there who are fans of the Sea of Ash, what do you want to say, Scott? It's set in that same world, perhaps, is the best way to put it. If you're a fan of the Sea of Ash, then the story in Autumn Cthulhu is called The Night is the Sea, if I remember correctly. And I don't know, I guess that's the best way to describe it. And in that same world, would you say that or no?
I'm so glad you brought that up, Mike, because when we did the live eZine show from the convention, and we were talking and about the sequel, and you said something about it being set in the same world, and I have felt bad since that I didn't say that's exactly right, Mike, because I didn't say it at the time, and I felt poorly since, because when I thought about that in retrospect, I went, he's absolutely right. It is. You could sort of set the same world, and I thought you hit the nail on the head.
I hit that nail right between the eyes.
Indeed.
I can mix a metaphor like nobody's business.
yeah.
Yeah,
You're
okay,
be a
so...
poet soon.
What?
I said you're going to be a poet soon.
Yeah, actually, that was my first paycheck as a writer. I once won $100. What was a gift certificate? It was a $100 gift certificate to Barnes and Noble a long time ago for in a poetry contest. So yeah, not a lot, but I've done a little bit.
Well, that gives Scott and I something to shoot for. Maybe we can be poets too one day.
Oh, I think you guys are a lot more poetic than I am.
I read that poem you sent me to look at one time, Mike, and it was awesome.
Sorry, what?
I saw a poem you did one time. Remember you shared a poem with me, and it was awesome.
Oh, you talking about the?
Music set to it, or?
Are you talking about the Town of Autumn poem?
Yes.
Yeah. No, it wasn't that one. It was actually wow, I'm really echoing in your speakers. Can you turn down your speakers a little bit, Scott?
My speakers?
Yeah, we're really echoing. Okay, that's a little bit better. I don't know what happened. Don't turn it down so you can't hear us, but just maybe try turning it down a little bit. Anyway, yeah, it was not that poem. It was not the Town of Autumn poem. It was actually a poem I wrote for my wife, and unbeknownst to me, she sent it in to this huge romance website or something, and they had poems judged from all over the country, and they selected mine as the #1. So that was a really long time ago.
That's cool.
Oh, so that's what you were talking about. Killing the Lovecraft eZine and starting romance eZine.
Yeah, right. Let's do a test. Scott, you still there?
Yes.
Okay. let's try when you're not talking. I'm not trying to mute you, but I want to see if it is you because I think it is. You know where your mute button is?
Yes.
Hit that for a second.
Okay.
All right. Are you muted? Try saying yeah. All right. So just do me a favor then. I think since you're having such internet problems today, just keep it muted, and if you want to talk, just unmute it, just back and forth. Oh, you're not muted actually.
Is my picture
This is
banned?
Mike's polite way of easing you out. Next thing you know,
No, it's not actually. I'm just trying to. I'm driving myself crazy, and I'm sure the listeners with this echo. All right, hover your cursor over my face, and some buttons will appear. See them? In the top middle? Okay, see the button that looks like a microphone on the left, almost all the way to the left? Yep, there you go. Now you're muted. Okay, so we're not echoing now. So do me a favor, remember where that button is. If you want to talk, just unmute it. And then just mute it.
That's me.
Yeah. Yep, exactly like that. Now you're muted and we're not echoing. So anyway, all right. On that note, and no, I'm not trying to ease them out. Google Hangout is the best thing out there, but sometimes it's pretty moody.
Yeah, sometimes.
All right. Anything else about any other questions on the check the message board on the Sea of Ash or any of Scott Thomas's work? If not, I'm going to give away 2 copies of this in a little bit. If you don't have it, if you don't win it, this Sea of Ash is available in print, and it's also available in Kindle. So, and maybe someday we'll have an audio version. I'm working up some possibilities on that, though I don't want to promise.
And if you don't have it, put it on your wish list.
Yeah. Let's see here. What else we got to talk about? Oh, yeah. I posted Speaking of Autumn Cthulhu, Dave Felton did some really, really great artwork for promotional artwork for me for Autumn Cthulhu, and that just I posted that a couple of days ago, and we'll be doing the Kickstarter for that this coming month, sometime in October. So.
Yeah, Dave's great.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a really great piece of work.
I was absolutely thrilled to have him do the artwork and turn it into a T-shirt.
Oh, that's right. Dave did the
yeah.
For your T-shirt.
There was an all King in Yellow issue of what do you call it? However you pronounce that Welsh zine, Cthulhu or something like that. And unbeknownst to me, Dave did I contributed. And apparently they asked Dave to do an illustration of me for that issue, and I was just bowled over. So I asked Sam McKenna at Scurvy Inc. It's like, hey, this would be a pretty cool T-shirt. So, and it is.
Well, that's how you know when you made it. When you got your face on a T-shirt.
When you got a Dave Felton T-shirt, yeah.
Hang on. Yeah, keep that up. There we go.
Yeah. And it's in yellow, too, which is cooler now.
Yeah. All right, so what else is going on in the world of weird fiction, Lovecraftian fiction?
Well, Pete didn't plug this, but he's in an anthology called Tales of Cthulhu Invictus, which Golden Goblin Press just came out with, and it's 9 stories by various writers set during the Roman Empire. It's got Pete, Bob Price, Tom Lynch, Christine Morgan, a lot of other great writers.
I am going to have to make another. I used to have a little bibliography of Cthulhu mythos stories set in Roman times. I'm going to have to resurrect that now because quite a few more have come out lately.
Really,
an
there's more than a
interesting time
couple of
period.
there's more than a couple of books of Cthulhu set in Roman times.
Well,
Yeah.
there was some in historical Cthulhu.
Well,
Yeah,
for example, you know Simon of Gitta?
Yeah, Dick Tierney, absolutely.
Tierney's got it all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he also has his novel, The Gardens of Lucullus.
Lucullus, yep.
That was really quite good. But there's a story called The Golden Keeper, which was in Jim Turner's anthology, I think. I forget what it was called. Eternal Lovecraft. There's a handful of stories scattered throughout different anthologies. There was in the Sathagwa cycle. There was one set in Roman times. I forget what it was called though. So there's quite a few stories.
You mean, is there a Cathaga cycle?
Sathagwa?
Yeah, I thought there was, yeah.
You know what, guys? Flipping back to the Sea of Ash for a second, I was a little off balance because my hearing, I was having a hard time hearing some of what Scott said, and I know his internet connection is not the best today, but we should talk about Nick Gucker a little bit because he did the cover for my edition of the Sea of Ash, and it's just spectacular. I had him read it, and he's not a pushy guy, and he practically insisted to me that he's gonna do it, which I was very happy to hear.
It's an awesome cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nick's art is just wonderful.
Yeah, that's perfect. He captured the feel of the story very well.
Well, at Necronomicon, I went up to Nick's booth. I'm sorry, Scott, were you going to say something?
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
At Necronomicon, I went up to Nick's booth and talked to him a little bit about the sequel to the Sea of Ash, and he's going to do that as well, so which is fitting. So that was great. I was glad to hear that.
Gotta be. He put so much care into capturing a variety of details from the story. Very impressive.
Yeah.
Oh, he always does. His work is just stunning.
I want to talk about something real quick because I posted this and with a lot of things it's a balance, but I posted this article on Charles Bukowski. I think it's relevant to writers and artists. Bukowski wrote this letter about ditching the 9 to 5. 30 years later, it's more relevant than ever. And I guess what happened was that a publisher that Charles Bukowski knew, let me just find this so I get it right. No, I can't find it. But anyway, this publisher that he knew said that he'd pay him $100 a month if he would quit his job and just write. And so he said that he took him up on it. He said that he would rather try and write and starve. I have one of two choices: stay in the post office and go crazy, or stay out here and play writer and starve. I have decided to starve. So, you know, I get questions from sometimes writers asking me, you know, should I quit my job and so forth. Probably the answer is no. But it depends on what kind of responsibilities you have too. If you have 3 kids, definitely not. So, Pulver, what's your thoughts on
it? Don't quit your day job. It requires more than talent. If it was just sheer talent, then we could list 100 writers right now who would be bestsellers. But it's luck. It's which way the wind is blowing on any given day. This, as Jeff and Scott and everybody else will tell you, it's work. Real work. It requires commitment. If you don't want this, if this is not an uncontrollable force that will not allow you to sleep, don't. You really have to want this. This isn't playtime. Maybe it is for some, and there are certainly people out there who are, talented enough and they can write something here and write something there. But for most all of us, this is a real job. It's real work. It's real effort. You may be just sitting there sweating and screaming at a keyboard, but at the end of the day, you're drained. You have given it your all. And some days that all may be great, and you may have a lot to account, a lot you've gotten that day. And other days, you may have a pile of crap, a small pile. And you're Sisyphus. Whatever you do today, you got to get up in the morning and you got to push the rock all the way back up the hill again. And that never goes away.
Mm-hmm. And
so,
practical... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just, how much do you want this? How lucky are... And the other thing, too, is there are very few people there who don't experience this, but, I know somebody who's an excellent writer, and last year they were being accepted constantly. And they just couldn't go wrong. And then all of a sudden, for 3 months, it was no, thank you, nope, sorry, not interested. And they were like, whoa, wait a minute, well, what's going on here?
Well, and in practical terms, I agree with everything you just said, but and to add to that, in practical terms, it boils down to not, if you don't need much money, you don't have to make much money. I guess there's no better way to put it. If you have 3 kids, it doesn't matter if you don't spend much money on yourself. You still need quite a bit of money. If you're a single person, or it's just you and your wife, and so forth, then it's a lot easier to do. We drive a beat-up car that doesn't have air conditioning, so I don't have much of a choice whether I can go to a real job anymore. But when I had a choice, I didn't do it either. But I don't say that in the sense of, okay, I'm better than people with a real job. I'm saying that my personality didn't fit one very well. I decided 20 years ago that, or longer than that, that I couldn't do it. So, everybody's different. We don't spend much money. Yeah.
I know that there's a famous fiction author named Patrick Rothfuss. He's written the fabulously successful fantasy novel The Name of the Wind.
Mm-hmm.
And he had been working on it for over 15 years before he got it published. Living in a small town in Wisconsin and a TA at a university there. And someone asked him, if I wanted to live the writer's life, what should I do? And his advice was, live somewhere cheap.
Mm-hmm.
You've got email, you've got computer connections. He says he lived in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, where he could share an apartment with some guys and eat ramen and live on a TA salary. And it didn't hurt him. He had everything he needed or wanted because he was in a university setting, but it was very inexpensive. He said, I didn't have to live in Manhattan.
Yeah. And some people's dream matches what they're doing for a career. I mean, my wife has a 9-to-5 job, but she tweeted on Friday that she was living the dream. She had an absolutely fabulous day. Every year of teaching, she's a high school English teacher. Every year gets better for her. And I think if I won the lottery tomorrow, she wouldn't stop teaching. So there's nothing wrong with a 9-to-5 job whatsoever. If some people are fortunate enough to be paid for what they love to do, she's one of them.
Yeah. It's
yeah.
And Mike brings up a great point. Your significant other. If let's say you don't have children, but you do have a significant other, are they willing to go along with this? Are they willing to endure the downside of the struggle? And I'll pick on Jeff for a minute. Jeff has been around for a long, long time. His work is brilliant. Everybody says so. He's a writer's writer. He's the creator of Prunktown, which many people feel is one of the most significant weird fiction creation in the last whatever amount of years.
And which is being adapted into a graphic novel.
We could talk about his short stories. We could talk about his novels. Jeff Thomas should be a household name. His work should sell to thousands and thousands. He should be able to just sit at home and write and, not sweat and not have a care in the world other than the next sentence. If everything was fair and equal. But this is not a fair and equal business. For every success, for every Laird Baron, or look at Paul Tremblay's Head Full of Ghosts. It's marvelous, but those things don't come along every day. And they're rare. And writers of the caliber of Jeff Thomas and Laird and Paul Tremblay and a lot of other people, for all that talent and all those wonderful works that they gift us with, look at whatever that woman who wrote 50 Shades of Grey.
Okay.
I mean, come on, that's an absolute piece of trash. Just the craftsmanship. I'm not talking about what the story is or any of that. And yet there's somebody who now is Richard and God. There's no fair here. There is no rhyme or reason. The old days where New York would find a writer that they loved and bring that writer along and help that writer establish a readership. So those days are gone.
Mm-hmm.
The publishing industry is just like every other entertainment industry, like the film industry. They want home runs. And they'll get behind something if it's hot, but so much of what we truly love is small press work. And small presses are run by one or two people, and they don't have the time and they don't have the budget. They acquire a work that they are willing to support, and their support is to put the book on the street. And that's about it.
And their motivation is they have something very similar to that passion that the writer has, except their passion is translated into that act of publishing. They're where they get the juice of putting that book out there. Somebody like Sam Cowan of Dim Shores Press, or Joe Morey of Dark Renaissance. They get off on the creation of that book, seeing it come together, getting it out there, and so they're not motivated by the money aspect of it either, but by that passion.
Yeah, and small press publishers are a gift, especially to the readership. And there's certainly a gift to writers. But it's a very tough row to hoe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it all boils down to do you want to, and the highs are creatively are extreme, but there's lows too, and we all endure those lows.
Yeah,
So
it has to do with personality too. I've told this story before, but when I got my first real job, I was 18. It was 1989, something like that, and um, it was at a factory. We stood on an assembly line all day long and worked on bombshells. You know, my particular job was the bombshells came down the assembly line, and I would use different tools to make sure that they were up to specs. So if you can imagine doing that for 10 hours a day, if you take a break and go to the bathroom, they pile up. You know, nobody takes your place. So you basically have to run to the bathroom and run back for 10 hours a day. And this lady came up to me, and she'd been there for like 10 years, and she told me how lucky I was to get that job at such a young age, because it was a very secure job, very good job, paid well, and had great job security, you know, and she was trying to welcome me and make me feel great. I was horrified to hear that. I that she'd been there 10 years. I imagine myself 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, standing on this assembly line. You know, so that doesn't make me right that my personality is a square peg in a round hole for for most jobs. You know, so I've been self-employed since I was probably I think 24, so over 20 years now. You know, and some years I made a lot of money, some years I made very little money. That doesn't make me better than somebody with a real job, but I just want to point out that some personalities can hack it and some personalities can't. You know.
and personality, that's a great point, Mike. How thick is your skin? You want to write? Okay. Especially nowadays, we have this monster, which it's a great boon and it's a horrible sized monster. It's called social media. There's there's Amazon, there's Goodreads, there's blogs. You know, people read your book. As many people as there are who recently adore Sea of Ash, there's people out there who read something else and they didn't like it. And they're invisible. And I don't mean they didn't like Sea of Ash, but they read some book or some story and it didn't push their buttons. And you don't know them and nobody else knows them, and all of a sudden on their blog or some miscellaneous Amazon review or wherever, they just take out the sword and disembowel you. How thick's your skin? What does that feel like? How well do you take criticism? And I'm not saying it's all negative criticism, because there's sometimes where people, have fair criticisms of the work. Those things, you get a great review, your feet are 2 inches off the floor. You get somebody who doesn't get it and hated it and takes you to task. Are you one of those people who can shrug that off? Or are you one of those people that even though you don't agree with the review and don't like it, it hurts? These things that we release out into the world, they're our children. What people think of them means a lot to us. Certainly we all want our children to be liked and loved, but when they're not, that can be devastating. So are you willing to stand up there and take body shots and not retaliate? That's important. If somebody doesn't like your, in this age of social media, we have so many trolls. you can't respond because no matter how rational you are, no matter how fair or balanced you try to be, you can't win in these situations. So,
Yeah, and I'll tell you a great tool, whether you're a writer or an editor or a publisher, or maybe you're a combination of all three. You get a bad Amazon or Goodreads review. Yeah, Joe's right. It hurts like hell. But a great tool is to find a book that absolutely everybody agrees is just a phenomenal book.
absolutely.
And they'll be inevitably be 1-star reviews for that book. I think it was Scott got a 1-star review on Sea of Ash. If you can believe anybody out there is that moronic. And I sent him over to Laird Barron's, a couple of Laird Barron's book page, and there's some 1-star reviews on Laird Barron's book.
Oh yeah, Brian Lumley took me to breakfast 17 years ago, something like that. And he said, okay, your first book came out, and that's great, and blah, blah, blah. He goes, now the next thing you got to do is wake up tomorrow morning with a suit of armor. And I'm like, huh? He goes, you need a skin because people will be coming after you now. And, he explained everything, and he said, as soon as you're near a computer, go to Amazon and pick some novel that you think is brilliant, that everybody you know and everybody you've ever heard talk about it considers it one of the greatest things ever written, and see how many 1-star reviews it got.
Mm-hmm.
So I went, the minute I got the opportunity, and I looked up To Kill a Mockingbird. And just went, what? Did you read this? Are you nuts? Doesn't matter how good something is. There'll be naysayers. Mike and I have seen it time and again. Mike and I have talked about it, privately. So again, Mike's right. Personality means a ton in this business. And
Yeah, so I don't know that there
You've been doing this forever.
Huh?
You must got a lot. Jeff, I was going to say, Jeff's been doing this forever.
Yeah.
He's one of our best. Let him chime in.
Oh yeah, it's. I remember very early on when I started getting stories published in the small press. A bad review would like a knife right between your ribs. It would really hurt me. And but you do get a thick skin over time. You're never gonna like a bad review, but it's easier to kind of just laugh at it and shrug it off, and it's to be expected. Just like you were saying, Joe, I was reading 4 Amazon reviews once for I Am Legend by Richard Matheson, and I was just shaking my head, So, you could pick any book.
Yep.
Any movie, and any musical performance you think is brilliant, and there's going to be people who it just doesn't resonate with.
Yeah.
There's been a recent series of novels by Ramsey Campbell about the horrors of internet persecution.
Oh yeah.
End of the Dark, 7 Days of Cain, Think Yourself Lucky. One even implied the great old ones are behind it. It was 7 Days of Cain, if you haven't read it. It's vaguely implied.
Cthulhu's a troll.
Yeah, that could be.
It's really Ihorn. Ramsey Campbell's God of the Dark Labyrinth is behind it.
Well, that could be because no matter everything that you guys have said is right about not taking these to heart. That every book has 1-star reviews. The flip side of that is maybe I'm just too sentimental, but I will never understand if you don't like a book, you don't like a book. What I don't understand are hatchet jobs and personal attacks, in reviews, and just the mean things that some reviewers can say. You know, if you don't like the book, just discuss that, or discuss what you didn't like about it.
I get suspicious when something has such a level of hostility. It's like,
Yeah.
if you don't like it, why are you attacking it so much? Then sometimes I get suspicious if it's some personal issue.
Yeah, I've seen and I've received supposed reviews that have nothing to do with the book that just are directed at me personally.
Yeah. And I've complained about those to Amazon, and other people have, and that should be addressed when that happens, and people point it out. But
Amazon does nothing. It's like I know on one particular occasion, 27 writers that I know of all contacted Amazon and said, that's not a review, that's a personal attack against this writer.
Yeah, and
27 people, and nothing was done.
They ignore it, but yet they've got this recent, is it an upcoming policy or is it an upcoming possible policy that if it doesn't show that you bought the book, you can't review it at Amazon. In other words, you could go to Barnes and Noble and buy the book, but then you can't review it on Amazon.
Right.
If that comes into play, if that actually happens, that's pretty ridiculous that they're focusing on that, but yet they ignore trolls.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think with that particular policy, this is just another attempt at Amazon to control the marketplace.
Sure.
That's a good point.
Yes, absolutely right. You're right, Joe. Because if you want to get
Amazon, go ahead,
Matt.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt, and then Joe.
I used to write quite a few reviews, and my time constraints have been really hard for me lately to do that. But I am absolutely convinced the reason that they're doing that is so that the people who want to think of themselves as reviewers will buy their products through Amazon. Because there's some people who really get off on it's their amusement, their entertainment, their connection to the community. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Amazon wants to control that.
Yeah, there's X amount of people who think this is my sandbox, and they want to have a hand in it in some way, shape, or form. That's unfortunate. I mean, Amazon's great. Their prices are great a lot of times, but as we give them more and more power, perhaps we'll have less and less and less options.
Well, there's a reason Jeff Bezos is a billionaire, and he wants to keep it that way.
Yeah. Man, I was looking at a product on Amazon the other day, and I live about 45 minutes from Dallas. I live in a small town, so this wouldn't apply to me, but it just identified me as being close to Dallas and said something to the effect of, if you order this, you'll have it in 2 hours, from a drone. I was like, what the ever-loving hell? Wow.
I do not want books delivered by drone. I'm sorry, that bothers me.
I don't want anything delivered by a drone.
I don't either.
I don't even like talking to robots on the phone. I don't want them delivering my packages.
You figure they'll bomb your house by accident.
No. Just my word. If suddenly we have tens of thousands of drones in the air at any given moment over major metropolitan areas, New York, LA, Chicago, Miami, whatever, delivering pizzas and books and a pack of cigarettes. Well, wait a minute, maybe I do want a drone now that I think about it. Or a six-pack. I mean, isn't that dangerous? I mean, if you're walking down Broadway in the Village and there's a drone with a six-pack and all of a sudden the propeller breaks or the battery farts and the six-pack falls and hits some poor woman who just got done at work and is on her way home, I
Death
mean,
by
that
beer.
could potentially be life-threatening.
Yeah, everybody knows the real
What about all the plane
sensible
traffic?
way to handle this is to build tunnels underneath everything, and it's just like this tunnel system, you know. That would be
Yeah,
the
pneumatic chute. Phew.
exactly. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, yeah.
I can get
But no,
on board with that.
what we need is we need somebody, and somebody out there. I know you're out there, and I know you're brilliant. We need one of those goddamn Star Trek beamer things, you know, from here to there. And you could put the plane industry out of business. You could you could market this to all kinds of businesses. You know, deliver your pizzas, zoop, you know.
You know, you go ahead and laugh, Joe, but the idea of a replicator is not really science fiction anymore. I never really gave much thought to 3D printers and what they can do, little snippets
Oh,
in
I
the
know.
news.
Oh yeah.
My youngest son is doing robotics, and they have to design these parts, and they design these screws, and they've got a 3D printer, and they print these customized screws and bolts and attachments for their robot. It's like, okay, well, if you had a big block of protein, why couldn't you, like, print a ham? I mean, you think
Well,
about it.
I
Not far
want one of
away.
these things. I want one of these things so on Thursday morning I can get up and beam over to Mike's house and we can go to the diner and have breakfast. You know,
There you go.
things
Just
like that.
don't let a housefly get in there with you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Little problem.
Because we've all been down that road.
I hate when that happens.
You know, I get back to Amazon. I can't jump on the look. There's this bandwagon that Amazon is evil, and there's the flip side that it's really awesome and can do no wrong. As with most things, I think the truth is in the middle. You know, you can find. I've been able to find some really hard to find books that I could never find in a used bookstore, or rarely. You know, if I get a craving for a certain book, I can usually find it on Amazon, and that's a good thing. But there are some bad things about Amazon too. There are.
Well, I don't like. It's like anything else. You have to understand, it's not an altruistic organization. It's a business.
Right.
They're intending to maximize market share and profits, and so you understand that. But I am dependent upon online bookstores to get me my books because there's nothing like what I want here in town.
Right.
Yeah. And I love walking
I found an old used bookstore in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm sending my sister there to search through for old McNaughton titles. Because I can't go there myself.
She must love you.
I bought her dinner sometime.
Oh wow, that was dinner. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, no, and I used to do the same thing.
I also give her all the free advice she wants.
Oh yeah, that's worth a lot too.
Yeah. Or the poor woman. Like,
They don't have an online search engine. I'm saying this like I used to. I had a client in Oregon, and I used to go to Powell's bookstore, and then they stopped sending me to that client and shipping me out to Oregon anymore. And then I found, no, when the internet came, I can go to Powell's bookstore online.
See, I was lucky, and I had a out-of-the-way store a half hour from me, and they would have old issues of Crypt, and all kinds of old paperbacks and whatnot, and they weren't looking to, like, retire next week. So it was great for old stuff. But yeah, you know, you hear about something. I've been lucky lately and heard about a couple of very amazing books, and it's just not in bookstores.
Yeah.
You know, so
I love browsing through a wonderful used bookstore, but that doesn't mean I'm going to find what I want.
Oh, back in its day, I loved Barnes and Noble, my local Barnes and Noble, and I loved because every once in a while you'd walk in there and somebody had decided, oh, we need to eliminate stock, so we're going to reduce this and this and this and this and this. 99-cent DVDs and then of course all those 40% off coupons I used to get all the time. But yeah, you know, mom and pop bookstores are just like small press publishers. They're treasure troves, and to be supported whenever possible.
Well, Amazon sometimes is a problem with small press, because I remember I ordered Scott Nicolay's collection, the Dogen and Bremer book.
Yeah.
And I kept getting delayed, and I was at a convention, and I bought it from Dogen and Bremer, and then I canceled my Amazon order.
Mm.
Because what was happening a lot was I would order something on small press, and they would eventually cancel it, because they're trying to force the small press guys to give them a huge discount on the book.
Oh, right. Absolutely. That's one of the things that goes on. And at one point, I don't know if this is still true or not, but at one point, I'm pretty sure I had heard from a number of places that with Amazon, if you were a small press publisher and you only had like 4 titles out, they didn't want any of your books. You weren't large enough or significant enough for them to want to bother with you.
You'd think if they're trying to make as much money as they can, they would take it regardless. But
you would.
Who knows?
But again, it's look at the problems that Amazon has had over the years with major publishers, with major writers, with writers who have been bestsellers forever and continue to be. Amazon wants as much control as they can get, and will occasionally go to war to get it.
Are you wearing a Mark Laidlaw T-shirt?
No, actually, well, yes, I am. It's a Mark Laidlaw T-shirt. No, actually, there's a bus company back home, and it's one of their T-shirts. But
for those
yes,
that don't know, Mark Laidlaw is the author of the 37th Mandala.
Mark Laidlaw is one of Weird Fiction's finest writers, and if you want to think this is a Mark Laidlaw T-shirt, well, in my mind, it is.
Joe Contour posted a picture on the message board. Amazon delivery drones skeet shooting with prizes. All right, so Scott,
does Amazon sell guns?
I hope not.
Can you have a drone deliver a Mossberg Persuader over to your house?
Well, hopefully
that could cure your internet troll problems, maybe, if you could get a nice new Mossberg.
Well, when you talk about drones, I keep thinking of that commercial for a car where it's sort of a parody of the Birds. And instead of the Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, you got these drone-like robots in the air that are chasing everybody who's trying to leave a building.
Yeah. I don't know. The idea of drones is like, I mean, let's take a great idea like that and utilize it for important things. How about just using drones for, I don't know, emergency medical supplies or something like that?
Yeah, delivery.
To get a 6-pack of Budweiser, that just bothers me at a really deep level.
What's your business? That's why
next week we got, am I saying his name right? Mark Michaud?
Mark Michaud, yep, okay.
Michaud, okay. Week after that.
Necronomicon Press?
Yeah. A week after that, on October the 4th, we've got Trent Zelazny, who's a crime fiction writer, and he's the son of Roger Zelazny. We're going to talk about Trent's work, and we're going to talk about his dad, especially A Night in the Lonesome October, since that'll be our first show in October this year, and that's such an October novel and a
And
Lovecraft
Trent is
novel.
a really, really gifted noir writer. Really is. That'll be fun.
Yeah. Laird will be told me he wants to be on that show as well because he's a big fan of Roger Zelazny. So
Cool.
Laird will be here too.
Aren't we all?
Yes, I would hope so. I don't know how many times I read the Amber novels growing up.
Oh, Nine Princes in Amber. I still remember when that first came out.
Yeah.
What?
That's not even my favorite Zelazny.
Huh?
What's your favorite Zelazny?
It's what's it called? Damn, now I can't remember the title of it. It's about the person who has kind of a fungus growing on them. They've got a blue eye and a brown eye. They're from Greece. They're showing an alien. Like Earth is kind of a failing planet, and these aliens are coming to look at it, and he's showing them around. It's This Immortal. That's the name of it. This Immortal.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I think I
I've read that book like 50 times.
I only read that once. I don't even remember that one. I'll have to reread that. So anyway, Trent Zelazny will be on the show. Wayne June on the 11th, and then on the 25th, a guy named Jeffrey Thomas and another guy named Christopher Taylor will discuss the upcoming Punktown graphic novel.
Cool.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Punktown. Great stuff.
Anyway, Scott, I'm sorry for the sound problems you have. I really appreciate you being on the show today.
I'm sorry I was so late getting here, but
no problem.
great seeing all you people I've now seen in person.
Sorry? What did you say?
Oh, I said it was great to see all the guys I've now met in person.
Oh yeah, Necronomicon was awesome.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. All right, I think we're done. Thanks for being on the show, Jeff, Scott, everybody.
My pleasure.
Good night, all.
Good night, everybody.
Night. We'll see you all next week, 6 o'clock Eastern.